Hello, I'm Cole Powell, award-winning singer-songwriter from Random Mind Records. If you enjoy what you hear, be sure to like, subscribe, comment, and click the bell for notifications. Also, if you'd like the ability to help us choose what content to react to on the channel, as well as early access to reaction videos, consider supporting us on Patreon for $1 a month. The link's in the description. We also have $2 and $3 tiers that would give you access to exclusive content such as full-length album reactions, as well as full-length music-related television episode reactions. All right, now I'll shut up and get to the music.
Can't handle words like that. Words like that. No, no, no.
All right, folks, so I saw this and I just had to whip out a quick reaction. I had a few minutes to do this. This is American Songwriters, The Six Most Essential Bruce Springsteen album. This is from 6 days ago. It's a fresh article. I skimmed it really quickly. I didn't see any studio album that I didn't know, although it looks like there's one live album on there that I have not listened to. So I'm not going to be able to speak to that, but I'm going to check out and see what they have to say about these Bruce Springsteen albums. I still have a few albums left. I'm just now at Magic from, I think they came out in either 07 or 08, so I still have a few albums left, but I know that Bruce's career is generally considered to have peaked by this point, so I'm making the reasonable deduction they're going to be pulling 6 essential albums from his early career, and that's what it looked like whenever I just scroll through real quick. So we're going to take a look at this article and see what the author has to say. This is from Robert Crawford, again, American songwriter. And let's see what his 6 essential Bruce Springsteen albums are. Up first, Born to Run. Okay, Born to Run. If you've been watching my reactions, you know my assessment of Born to Run is it's phenomenal. I understand why it was big. I understand why it catapulted Bruce to superstardom. At the same time, it's not my personal favorite of the Bruce records. This is a side of Bruce's music that is less preferable to me than some of his other work. I really like his early stuff, his first couple of albums that really didn't go anywhere. I also really love, probably my favorite side of Bruce is his folk silence, but I get why this was so huge. And they list here Thunder Road, 10th Avenue, Freeze Out. That's one of my favorite tracks. And Born to Run, they mentioned those as it's kind of the top tracks here. And I like this right here. Let's see. He says, Springsteen mentions those 3 songs. Then he says, Springsteen sings them like a bar band, Roy Orbison crooning 1 minute and barking the next. That is a great way to put that. If you're a regular viewer of the channel, y'all know Roy Orbison is one of my favorite artists of all time. Probably my second favorite artist of all time. Probably my favorite solo artist of all time. And I know Bruce loved Roy. I've reacted to the Black and White Night with Bruce and the All-Star group singing with Roy. And that's a really good observation here from the author that Bruce sounds like a bar band Roy Orbison. I don't think that's a negative. I don't think the author means that as a negative, and I certainly don't take it as such. Released during the heyday of 1970s arena rock, Born to Run was something else entirely, a heart-on-sleeve record rooted in melody, muscle, and melodrama created by a man who was bold enough to believe in the redemptive power of rock and roll. Really well put. Can't really argue that. I'm not sure if I would put this at number 1, and I'm not even sure if he's ranking them most essential to least essential. I know whenever I do rankings, I go bottom to top, starting with the least and moving to the greatest. I'm not sure if that's what or this author's going in chronological order. Up next, Born in the USA. This is another one. To me, it's the next generation of Born to Run. Basically, I feel like that Born to Run, you kind of start hearing some overtones of musical styles that would become popular in the 80s. And Bruce just kind of took that to the next level with Born in the USA. Again, it's not my personal forte of Bruce, but I recognize how iconic it is. A great record. Let's see what the author has to say on this one. At its core is a story of embittered Americans, the Vietnam vet facing economic hardships, born in the USA, the small town loyalist driven from his birthplace by rising crime rates and decreasing jobs, my hometown. It's a great track. The grown-up who can't stop replaying the highlights reel of his youth glory days. That was one of my glory days, one of my favorite Bruce songs that we've listened to so far. I love that. I really love the video that went with that because it circles back around that he's playing baseball with his kids. So in a way, he is kind of getting to relive his glory days by passing it on to his child, passing it on to baseball to his kid, teaching his kid how to play baseball. Many of the album's best songs temper that frustration with celebration. That's a great point. Glory Days isn't a lament, it's a rowdy celebration of our past selves. Really great stuff there. He also mentions No Surrender and Dancing in the Dark. Wasn't one of my favorites. If you watch that video, I think that's the most viewed Springsteen song on YouTube. I think a lot of that has to do with Courtney Cox being in the video. It mentions Dancing in the Dark. Here's one of the top tracks. And the author concludes by saying there are genuine songs beneath all that gloss, and Born in the USA songs shine through the production. He was talking about that it uses synthesizers and electronic textures, but it's still genuine, real music. Can't say I disagree with that. I would probably, in terms of ranking, if we're going to rank from least to greatest, I would actually probably put this one above Born to Run. And again, I'm thinking the author may be just putting these in no specific quality order, but just in chronological order. All right, up next is number 3. This is the live record that I saw when I was scrolling through Live 1975 to 85. I have not yet listened to that. The reason I haven't listened to that, if I'd have known more about Bruce's live catalog, I probably would have listened to this instead of the Houston live set. But I listened to the Houston live set. It took us, I don't know, like 6 weeks or something to get through. I don't remember. Maybe not that much because I think I was able to film longer sets at that time and get them out more quickly than I am now. But after I did that, it was like I've already heard a lot of these songs live. I'd just be kind of retreading ground with better production quality. And most of our patrons that were doing these Bruce reactions for wanted me to move on to the studio cuts. And I do plan on going back and revisiting this. So I can't really comment on this. But the author says this here at the end: for listeners who don't have time to sort through a half century of bootleg material, this collection is the next best thing to catching the Boston concert. Gotcha, and I do hope to get to that. Up next is number 4, Nebraska. Now, Nebraska is my favorite Bruce record. This was the first Bruce record I listened to when I started reacting to Bruce over a year ago. It was suggested in a comment section. I had mentioned Dylan and John Fogerty, I think, in that video as probably the 2 greatest American songwriters. And somebody in the comments section said Bruce should be in that conversation. I was like, well, you know what? I really never got into Bruce. I should check out his stuff. What are your recommendations? They recommend checking out some material from Nebraska. I ended up listening to the entire record. Wonderful record. It's folk. It's stripped out. I know the whole history behind this with Bruce recording it as a demo, and then they ended up taking it and turning it into a commercially viable record. Definitely one of his best. I would definitely put this. I would not put it on an objective list that included cultural impact, popularity, the iconic nature of the record. I wouldn't put this record over, considering all those factors, I wouldn't put this record over Born to Run or Born in the USA, but I definitely think it should be a top track. And I also watched an interview where Bruce said that this would be, if he had to pick, I can't remember what the question was, but it was if he had to pick his best album or the album he would listen to for the rest of his life, or the album that he stands on for his entire career, it would be this one. I agree. Let's see, the author does not particularly mention any specific songs, but it says Nebraska is his first genuine folk album, followed years later by rootsy records like 95's Ghost of Tom Jod, another one of my favorite Bruce records, and 2019's Western Stars, which I have not gotten to, but I'll be getting to that soon. Number 5, Darkness on the Edge of Town. Yeah, I can't disagree with that either. This was the record that came out after Born to Run. Wasn't as big of a hit, and you still got that I mentioned earlier with Born to Run. You started getting some overtones of the decade to come in the musical stylings. Darkness on the Edge of Town, I feel like, continued that, and then Born in the USA was kind of the third. This is almost a trilogy of albums in terms of musical development, musical evolution. Really great record. I think this was actually the second record I listened to. I would definitely put this on the list. And I would probably put it below Nebraska too. So this is kind of, and I just realized the author's obviously not putting these in chronological order, because Darkness on the Edge of Town came before Nebraska, so he is putting them in order that he's ranking what is the most essential to least essential. So the author says here, he mentions Adam Raised a Cain, which is a great song. I love that. The whole religious imagery. I love it when Bruce draws from his religious background. Really great stuff. And Badlands, of course, that's an iconic one. I love the live versions of that. I think I've listened to a couple of different live versions of Badlands. And it calls it Badlands. It says that Badlands bottles desperation, wanderlust, and a killer chorus into 4 epic minutes. Yeah, great record, great songs. And number 6 is The Rising, which I haven't listened to. I mean, I've listened to, and hasn't been that long since I listened to it. Excuse me. I haven't had a lot of sleep in a while, guys. Sorry about that. I think I said that in another video I was doing the other day. Brain's not functioning up to peak efficiency, unfortunately. But anyway, it has been long since I've listened to The Rising, and that was a great record. I thought it was top-notch. I felt like it was kind of a spiritual successor to Nebraska and Tom Jod. Really great stuff about loss and the theme of 9/11. He had written some songs before 9/11, and he was working on the record when 9/11 happened, and then he wrote songs specifically about 9/11, and even the songs that he hadn't written specifically about really fit the whole theme of the record and that event. Incredible, incredible album. And let's see, the author mentions Lonesome Day, The Rising, that says they became radio hits, and the album's highlight, My City of Ruins. I agree with that completely. And the author calls it a gorgeous gospel song about rebirth. Can't say I disagree on here. So let me think about this. So if I were to do 6 and just do studio, not include a live record, I would probably put Tunnel of Love was a good record. Tunnel of Love, that, I'm not sure, that might be on here. I'm not sure if it's actually better material than what was on The Rising, but I feel like, because I think it may be a little bit more well-known and had more commercial success. If I'm wrong about that, correct me, but I'm thinking it's entered the collective consciousness a little bit more than The Rising has. So for those factors, I might put that above The Rising. My top 6, I guess, would then be Born in the USA, Born to Run, Nebraska, Darkness on the Edge of Town, Tunnel of Love, and The Rising. So that'd be my top 6 in terms of essential Springsteen albums based on what I've heard. And who knows, I may hear one coming up and think, hey, this is an essential album. Probably not, though, because I know have not been as popular, have not been as iconic as these, and I'm feeling like this author is using that as part of his criteria. I know I usually do whenever I'm ranking albums like this. Drop in the comments, what are your top Bruce records? Which one do you think are the best in terms of essential listens, looking at factors like production, songwriting, plus how iconic is it, how well received is it, what kind of an impact has it had on the music scene, even on Bruce's career. Drop in the comments, and we'll see you for the next Bruce. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, consider supporting us on Patreon. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and we'll see you soon.